was that? Looks like we're moving a bit. Stop moving. Okay. Heading out. Hey. Shh. No barking. No barking. Down. Okay, I'm back.
What do you think of Balmora, Outlander?
Hey, woo woo. Stop stealing Church's carrot.
was that?
Oh, greetings. How do you do? May we talk?
Joe, shut up.
Well, I find myself in pleasant company. Please share your thoughts.
Go ahead.
Welcome, Dunmer. Let's set aside our differences and talk.
shall we?
Welcome, friend. The day is yours. What you...
What's your story?
How delightful. Welcome.
I should probably wash up before heading home.
What do you think about it? Is there something you need?
Yes, Outlander, what do you want?
Sarah?
Do you need something?
Welcome. Please speak.
One day to you, friend. Is there something you need?
Did you want something? An honor, to be sure.
What's your story?
With pleasure. Please, go ahead. I'm all ears. Is there something I can do for you?
Citizen.
I see this land suits you. We welcome you freely, Outlander. Yes, Outlander. What do you want? Is there something I can do for you?
If
Welcome, friend. The day is yours. What
I
should we
like
talk
what
about?
I see. to This Week in Video Games, the show where we bring you last week's news this week. You're welcome. Hopefully October is treating you well so far. Lord knows there's been no shortage of stuff to play. I just wrapped up both Silent Hill 2 and the Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred campaign. One of them was incredible, the other one, not so much. You'll have to wait for my coverage to go up to find out which is which, but I'm pretty sure you can guess. Alright, plenty of stuff to get through this week, including the official reveal of Destiny on mobile, so let's start with that, shall we? That's right, whether we wanted it or not, we've stepped into a new era where every major live service game has to have a mobile spin-off. Fortnite, Apex, COD, Diablo, Warframe, you name it. Mobile was already gigantic well before Genshin Impact came along, but that was the game that really crossed the divide between the mobile and core gaming segments, and with that threshold now conquered, the floodgates are well and truly open. The next cab off the rank is Destiny Rising, the title of which we actually revealed a few weeks back when we spoke to our sources on the matter. The existence of the game and its title has now been confirmed by Bungie, or should I say confirmed by NetEase, because while this is a new Destiny game, the reveal of it put NetEase at center stage, making it clear that they were the ones developing this title with Bungie's support rather than the other way around. NetEase uploaded both a reveal trailer and a developer deep dive, very reminiscent of the Bungie Vidocs that are their signature. It was quite revealing actually. We learned that Destiny Rising is set in an alternate Destiny timeline where there were light bearers, but they weren't yet codified into the classic Hunter, Titan, and Warlock archetypes. From a gameplay perspective, that allows for more discrete characters with unique combat styles, which very much lines up with the earlier leaks we'd seen about Destiny Rising adopting a sort of hero character focus, rather than you being able to build your own character from scratch. This naturally invites speculation that Destiny Rising will be a gacha game, since in theory you'd be able to unlock unique characters who each have their own stats and combat repertoires. At no point in the developer deep dive does NetEase confirm anything like this. In fact, they remain very tight-lipped about monetization stuff at this point, but it just makes too much sense for this to not be the case. After seeing what NetEase did with Diablo Immortal, I don't think we should be expecting anything other than the absolute worst when it comes to mobile monetization. Having said that, the MiHoYo games have managed to find a bit of an equilibrium that manages to keep your average player happy and not feeling too fleeced, so hopefully NetEase can arrive at the same sort of balance, but again, let's not get our hopes up. In terms of visuals, it definitely looks like a mobile version of Destiny, and honestly, that's a good thing. Mobile hardware can do a surprising amount at this point, and clearly NetEase are pushing those hardware frontiers to deliver something that looks pretty decent. Obviously a big downgrade versus what you can get on console or PC, but still close enough that you feel like you're getting something authentic to the universe. Most notably, Destiny Rising will offer both a third-person and first-person option, the latter being a requirement for Destiny purists and the former being a requirement for monetization specialists who understand just how important it is to be able to see the character model you spent $600 real-life dollars gambling for. That's not all though. Third person is also just a preference for many people, and now for the first time they'll be able to experience a version of Destiny that offers them that option, and not just when you're using a sword, mind you. NetEase did say that Destiny Rising is still early in development, which we don't quite believe given our understanding of the development timeline. Regardless, they're clearly suggesting that the game won't be hitting a full release for some time yet, but they did say that their first closed alpha test will kick off in early November, exclusive to North America, which honestly is a bit surprising since I would have thought this release was more a play into Asian markets. I will have my VPN ready to go, hoping that I can worm my way into this test, and if I manage to do so and the NDA allows for it, I'll be sure to let you know how that goes. Turning now to Pokemon news, do you guys hear about these Poke-leaks? Leaks not quite the right word though. To be clear, this was a malicious hack that targeted not only confidential game information, but also the personal data of Game Freak employees. For that reason, I'll talk about this hack in the same way that I did the Insomniac hack, which is to report that it happened and give you the broad strokes without covering any of the detail. But yes, the hack did happen, and it's bad, like extremely bad, like absolutely on the same level as the Insomniac hack. In terms of the sheer amount of information that was stolen, we're talking about source code for multiple Pokemon games, information on games that were either cancelled or simply haven't been announced yet, information on the Pokemon game planned for Nintendo Switch 2, plans for new movies and animated series, as well as confidential meeting notes detailing creative decisions and deliberations. Most concerningly, it does also contain that employee data, names and contact details for over 2,500 current and former staff, including contractors. Game Freak has since issued a statement confirming the leak, saying that it occurred back in August, making it rather curious that we're only hearing about it now when private employee data was involved. They say that they've strengthened their security since then, but it's a little late now that the horse is bolted. Unclear how Game Freak plan to respond to this hacker if and when they manage to catch them, but it'll be the one time where I'll be cheering for Nintendo's and Game Freak's lawyers. You finally have a case we can all get behind. Go get them, boys. Turning to some happy news, the Steam Deck is finally available for sale in Australia, and I know this because Valve told me personally when I met with them last week. a number of representatives from Valve came to Australia for PAX to formally announce that more than 2.5 years after being available in basically everywhere else, the deck was now coming to Australia. Sold via Steam, direct to Australian consumers, the prices are a hell of a lot more reasonable than the grey market import pricing that we'd been earlier reliant on. But more than anything else, it's just nice to know that Australians will be able to buy a deck and receive full warranty support rather than just chancing it like we've been forced to. My conversation with the Valve team was really interesting actually. They did confirm that they are hard at work on the next iteration of the Steam Deck, but they made very clear that we shouldn't be expecting anything anytime soon. As they've said in the past, they don't want to do a hardware iteration that delivers more power if it means making a huge sacrifice to battery life. They told me that they've been monitoring the performance of other handheld PCs like the ROG Ally and the Legion Go, and they say they've learned a lot from seeing what each of those other devices was shooting for. For Valve though, they say that other products have sort of validated Valve's design approach, and they feel really confident that their focus on good battery life and consistent performance is the right steer for the moment. Interestingly, the team told me that this new Australian distribution platform sets them up for future hardware releases plural. Valve put out the deck, but also the Index VR headset, which hasn't been updated in quite some time now. They didn't offer any insight into that, but I'm sure Valve aren't done with VR hardware just yet, so I do wonder if we'll see a new VR headset at some point in the near future. Other than that, they told me they're working on some major software updates for the deck, which should result in some nice battery life improvements, particularly for LCD models. It was a really cool chat. Valve are an entirely unique company in this crazy world of video games, so getting the chance to speak with them directly was frankly fascinating. And if you'd like to read the full interview, then we've done a write-up for it over on our Patreon, freely available to all. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Speaking of Steam, here's something interesting. In certain territories, Steam is applying a new purchase disclaimer that specifies when you're only licensing a game rather than outright owning it. If that's confusing, here's the background. Unless you buy physical games, and in some cases, even if you do, there's a good chance that you don't actually own the games you are purchasing. Instead, you're purchasing a license to that game that can be revoked at any time, depending on the terms and conditions associated with that game. This has been normal business practice for the past 2 console generations, where digital console libraries became increasingly common and retailers stopped selling physical PC games almost entirely. Enter the state of California, home of oranges, Arnold, and the scattered remains of E3. Recently, the state legislature passed a law that said that companies need to properly disclose when your purchase of a product does not result in outright ownership, meaning that if you're only purchasing a temporary revocable license, then a disclaimer confirming that will need to appear before checkout. So that brings us back to Steam. This is the pop-up that now appears in certain jurisdictions when you're making a purchase. Quote, "A purchase of a digital product grants a license to the product on Steam," end quote. That's it, and to be honest, it's always been that way. The only difference is that now you're getting told that, and that's sure to raise at least some awareness around this issue. It's awareness that CD Projekt Red's Good Old Games is only happy to raise too. Their storefront is famously centered on the notion of actual ownership, and they will not sell a game that doesn't come bundled with an installer or has any form of DRM. They clap back at this recent Steam update, suggesting that they might add their own disclaimer to purchases that reads, quote, "A purchase of a digital product on GOG grants you its offline installers, which cannot be taken away from you," end quote. Very based. Alright, it's now time to dip our toe into the labyrinthine morass that is the remains of Studio Zaum, the co-op collective that released the seminal Disco Elysium back in 2019. We definitely do not have time to recount the collapse of that studio after the release of Disco Elysium. Honestly, that story is like its own subgenre of YouTube video at this point, but the long and the short of it is that much of the creative talent behind Disco Elysium, including lead designer and writer Robert Kurvitz and lead art designer Alexander Rostov, left the studio after disagreements with management that resulted in accusations of harassment, stolen intellectual property, and lengthy court battles. Disco Elysium is just about to celebrate its 5-year anniversary, and rather unbelievably, on October 11th, 3 new studios revealed themselves, all of which claiming to be staffed by people who made Disco Elysium and who are looking to make games inspired by Disco Elysium's legacy. 3 studios in one day, and they weren't even coordinating to make these announcements on the same day, by the way. This was like a total accident. This is basically impossible. Anyway, the first one goes by the name Longdew Games, and it's a London-based studio that has staff from Zaum, as well as veterans from Bungie and Rockstar. This studio seems pretty well-funded as they have investment from the private sector, they have a PR agency and everything. Most interestingly, they say they're making a game set in the world conceived by the former directors of the now cancelled Disco Elysium sequel. Yes, That is very convoluted, but it gives you a sense of how desperate all of these outfits are to lay claim to that Disco Elysium legacy. Okay, so next up we have Dark Math Games, who are making a game called XXX Night Shift. I think I saw that one on VHS back in the day. No, seriously, jokes aside, this is a real game. They got a trailer for it and everything, and as you can see, it is very Disco Elysium. It has at least 2 former Zaum staff working on it, including Timo Albert, who did graphic design for Disco Elysium. The third studio revealed is one going by the name Summer Eternal Games, and they're calling themselves an art collective / game studio, which is very similar to how Zaum used to describe themselves. This team has at least 6 Disco Elysium alumni, and they're being pretty out there with their disdain for the sort of corporate forces that were Zaum's undoing. Quote, "It's not pencil pushers and money lenders who make games. It is the relentless passion of the workers that creates an art form capable of saying something true," end quote. They say they'll begin with a crowdfunding initiative, but they haven't yet announced what they plan to work on, only that it's not a Disco Elysium sequel, obviously, and will instead be something entirely new. So that's 3 new studios, but don't forget that Zaum itself still exists, though it's unclear what they're working on, and it's a real Ship of Theseus thing with them, since basically none of the people that worked on the original Disco Elysium are still there. Finally, there's whatever Kurvitz and Rostov are up to. They've reportedly set up their own studio called Red Info, which is backed by NetEase of all companies, and we have absolutely no idea what they're working on either. It is some legendary shit that this one little game from a studio nobody ever heard of before has gone on to not only redefine the narrative RPG genre, but also spawned as many as 4 new studios that each look to pick up where Disco Elysium left off. Where the impact of most games could be measured in months, Disco Elysium's impact will be measured in decades. It's just a real shame that the price of that is that we'll never get an actual sequel from the people who made the original game such a
There is
masterpiece.
someone watching.
Finally, here's something pretty
I can
dire.
tell.
Bandai Namco are looking to cut roles as they recover from a disastrous year, and they're effecting those cuts in the most Japanese way possible, sticking employees in a room, giving them nothing to do, and then hoping they quit. The background to this is that Bandai Namco have had one of their worst years ever. Their big play into the MMO space, Blue Protocol, flopped so badly that the global release was cancelled, and even the Japanese servers will be taken offline early next year. This follows other missteps and cancellations across both the mobile and core gaming fronts, with multiple projects hitting the rocks at various stages of development. Bloomberg reports that the company is looking to reduce its workforce size after suffering substantial losses in its gaming business, which is a very common story for Western-based publishers, but Japanese labor laws are very, very different. It's basically impossible to effect layoffs over there, which leads companies to adopt a more creative approach to achieving the outcome. Bloomberg explains it this way, quote, "The Tokyo-based company is taking a traditionally Japanese approach to reducing staff and sending workers to rooms where they are given nothing to do, putting pressure on them to leave voluntarily," said the people asking not to be named discussing private information. Since April, affiliate Bandai Namco Studios Incorporated has moved about 200 of its roughly 1,300 employees to such rooms, and nearly 100 have resigned. More are expected to leave in the coming months, they said, end quote. This is real, by the way. This is a common thing in Japanese companies where rather than sack you, they kind of just give you nothing to do in the hope that you then quit from either boredom or shame. Wouldn't work over here, of course. We'd be like, what? You're paying me to sit there and do absolutely nothing all day? What's the catch? In Japan, though, it does actually get the job done. Bandai did respond to Bloomberg with a statement denying the practice and saying that these people were just chillin'. Quote, "Our decisions to discontinue games are based on comprehensive assessments of the situation. Some employees may need to wait a certain amount of time before they are assigned to their next project, but we do move forward with assignments as new projects emerge. There is no organization like an Oidashi Beya at Bandai Namco Studios designed to pressure people to leave voluntarily," end quote. Sure, Bandai, we totally believe you. A quick lightning round to finish off. X-Defiant is not shutting down. That's according to game director Mark Rubin, who said as much on Twitter. Game's probably not in a great spot when you need to be making those sorts of clarifications, but there's been plenty of chatter about the fate of the game given Ubisoft's recent admission that the game has underperformed. Rubin explained it rather transparently, quote, "We have done very little marketing, so yes, our numbers are down, but that is just to give the team the time to get the game in a better place before we do bigger spends on marketing to bring new players to the game and to bring back players that have left," end quote. I guess we'll see if all that turns out to be true or not in the future. Konami are looking to pick up where EA left off by getting the rights to the FIFA license, but only for FIFA esports tournaments? EA famously abandoned the license after football's laughably corrupt governing body tried to exact a licensing price that was so high that EA thought it better to rebrand their best-selling product rather than pay it. Connected to that license were a number of FIFA-sanctioned esports tournaments, and now those tournaments will see competitors playing Konami's eFootball rather than EA's FC25. eFootball was, for a time, the lowest rated game on all of Steam. After a disastrous launch that saw Konami scrambling to fix the game, they've made some improvements, and as such the game now sits at a mixed 63% on Steam, but the quality gap between Konami's and EA's offering is still vast. Something tells me not to expect huge viewership for the next FIFA esports tournament. Some rare good news: after the closure of Humble Games' publishing label, some of the people behind that label have formed a new publishing outlet going by the name Good Games Group. That team has already been contracted by Humble to continue shepherding their in-progress projects, so that's kind of a silver lining in all this. Sega is making a movie based on Shinobi. It's yet another obscure adaptation project that doesn't make a whole lot of sense except in the current video game adaptation Gold Rush climate. This one's being handled by Universal and production house Story Kitchen, the team behind the Sonic movies, and it's being directed by Sam Hargrave, who directed those Extraction movies on Netflix starring Chris Hemsworth. Did you see those? No, you did not. Neither did I. I feel like they go into that gray man category of big budget action films exclusive to Netflix that cost like $300 million to make, but that absolutely nobody watched. Hey, this is cool. Xbox are reportedly about to open up cloud gaming to allow you to play any game that you own in your Xbox library. This report comes from The Verge. Right now, you can only stream games in the Game Pass library, but apparently you'll soon be able to stream any game that's in your own personal Xbox library. That is pretty cool, not gonna lie. Kind of brings the tech in line with what Nvidia offer with GeForce Now, allowing you to stream any game across a number of libraries, including Steam, Epic, and Ubisoft Connect. Great move for Xbox. Let's hope The Verge's reporting on this turns out to be accurate. It usually is. Some quick sales numbers to top you off. The Tomb Raider series has now topped 100 million units sold. It always surprises me how popular these games were. Anyone who's played them back in the day using the original control scheme knows what I'm talking about. Metaphor ReFantasio is enjoying some fantastico sales. 1 million units in a single day. Compare that to Persona 5, which sold 1.5 million units in its first month, and you can see why it makes so much sense to also release your games day and date on PC. The Amazon-published Throne and Liberty has now hit 3 million players in its first week since launch, more than double that achieved by New World when it launched a few years back. Austin reviewed Throne and Liberty, by the way, and he was not the biggest fan. If you want to see the full review, I'll leave a link to that below the like button. But the big sales news this week was Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero, which hit an absolutely astonishing 3 million units sold in the first 24 hours alone. It hit a peak concurrent player count on Steam of 122,000 players. Compare that to the peak of Dragon Ball FighterZ at 44,000 players, and you get a sense for just how massive this launch was. Hell, Multiverses was free to play, and that peaked at 153,000 players, so Bandai Namco have an absolute blockbuster on their hands here. A welcome bit of news for them, given that earlier story about their unconventional HR practices. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, the most interesting reveal this week was the first game from Dreamhaven, a company founded by Mike Morhaime, one of the co-founders and former presidents of Blizzard Entertainment. One of their studios called Secret Door is working on a game called Sunderfolk, and the best way to describe it is imagining if like the Jackbox games were also a tabletop RPG. It's a fantasy couch co-op game that features turn-based tactics and deck building. Only you and your friends control everything via your phones while the action happens on screen. The initial previews for this one were really positive, and many have remarked that it has the qualities of an old-school Blizzard game, which is unsurprising given some of the ex-Blizzard talent at this company. This will arrive sometime in 2025 for all platforms. Some of the much less celebrated and often forgotten Tomb Raider games from the turn of the last century are getting the remaster treatment for all platforms. Tomb Raider 4 through 6 Remastered collects Tomb Raider The Last Revelation, Tomb Raider Chronicles, and Tomb Raider The Angel of Darkness, a period where the series was still holding onto its past identity a bit too much, while the rest of 3D gaming was evolving in a very different direction. Still, it's nice that these are all being taken care of for preservation's sake. They'll feature remastered visuals and a modern control scheme along with the original ones, as well as other quality of life stuff, and it's arriving on the 14th of October next year, which isn't the only time a Tomb Raider game has released on Valentine's Day. How about that? Embracer's Aspyr are taking the lead on this one. They've had quite a few shaky releases in the past, but a couple of their more recent remastered Star Wars games have seemed to have gone okay, so they might just be getting the hang of this after all. I mean, you'd certainly hope so, because it's not the only remaster Aspyr announced last week. They're also reaching deep into the Star Wars legacy bucket with Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles, which is also coming to all platforms. This was an arcadey couch co-op action game for the PlayStation 1 that saw you rip through battle droids and the like as a young Obi-Wan Kenobi and a Qui-Gon Jinn. They're putting 13 new playable characters into this one alongside the usual improvements, so that's kind of cool. Hopefully it holds up. It's coming out on January 23rd next year. Have they remastered the Pod Racer games yet? I feel like they should be the next cab off the rank. Now here's a Disney partnership we didn't quite expect. Disney and Devolver Digital have teamed up for Tron Catalyst, a new narrative-driven isometric indie action game. Lots of parrying and disc kicks in the trailer, and of course the light cycle is there too. It's the first game out of Devolver's new Big Fan label, which handles their licensed projects, and the developer is Mike Bithell and team. He's an indie developer of note. His first game was the emotional platformer Thomas Was Alone, and since then he's made a lot of interesting stuff in a lot of different genres, including the underrated John Wick Hex, which Devolver was using to show off the kind of stuff its Big Fan label would do. Tron Catalyst is coming sometime in 2025 for all platforms. Got some release dates now, and Ed is very excited about this one. It's Rise of the Golden Idol, which has locked in a release date for November 12th. This is the sequel to the eerie murder mystery puzzle game The Case of the Golden Idol, which initially flew under the radar, but quickly had people singing its praises as one of the best detective games since Return of the Obra Dinn. The sequel continues the story of the cursed idol in the 1970s, which continues to make people do really heinous shit. This one is coming out on all platforms, including mobile, where Netflix have picked it up as an exclusive. Spirit of the Samurai, that stunning stop-motion combat platformer where you play as a samurai and also a cat, is coming out on December 12th. We featured this one on our Put This On Your Radar a little while back, and it continues to look fantastic. Really looking forward to this one. Delay time now, and boy, this next one had a lot of people upset. Football Manager 25 has been delayed out of 2024 into, well, 2025. Specifically March. Considering last year's version saw 14 million players in just a year, this news has certainly caused some waves. Developer Sports Interactive have been really down on themselves in the announcement, saying, quote, "It has been a difficult development cycle for the studio. Many things have been moving slower than we had predicted, despite everyone in the team working at an incredible pace to try to get everything done. Timelines were already tight, and as rightly pointed out by many of your recent comments, we were simply rushing too much and in danger of compromising our usual standards. This has put an enormous amount of pressure on everyone working across the studio," end quote. Good on publisher Sega for letting them have the extra time to cook and not forcing them to push it out half-assed, though. That's a rare occurrence in the annual sports title category, not naming any names. EA. Here's a category of story that really sucks. Digital games going away forever. Last week it was announced that Little Big Planet 3 is going to be delisted from the PlayStation Store on October 31st. The latest version was developed by Sumo Digital rather than Media Molecule, and it was in the news at the top of the year when its online servers were shut down basically without warning after a long stint of technical issues. This delisting also includes all Little Big Planet DLC from the entire series. Anyone who owns the game or its DLC will still be able to access it past this date for the time being, but if you don't own it and you want it, you better get shopping, though even that's not a guarantee these days. So what came out last week? Well, to the surprise of absolutely no one, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero has made quite a splash. Reviews-wise, it's done well for itself with a strong open critic score of 82. PC Gamer gave it an 80 out of 100, saying, quote, "Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero is the new benchmark for Dragon Ball games. It captures the magic of the original Tenkaichi games perfectly, while the fresh approach to the well-worn story and its deep roster of characters serve as the ultimate celebration of Akira Toriyama's classic. When it's the pure Dragon Ball millions know and love, it's great. When it dabbles in what-ifs with the sparking episodes, Zero really excels," end quote. Games Radar was a bit more critical about the fighting mechanics, however, which is warranted since Dragon Ball FighterZ had such a lasting impact on the fighting game community given how good that game was. Sparking Zero got 3 out of 5 stars from them, and they said of it, quote, "Intentionally prioritizing flashy fan service over competitive play, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero provides the most complete series toy box yet, but with simple enemy AI and repetitive fighting mechanics, it lacks the depth of its more serious competition to the point of becoming rote," end quote. Sticking with the theme of punching burly dudes, Undisputed is the boxing sim that's carrying the Fight Night spirit into the future, though perhaps with a lot less flair. On Steam, this thing is being absolutely brutalized, sitting at a mixed 44%, with most of the negative reviews pointing to huge problems on the multiplayer side of things, with reports of bad netcode, unreliable lobbies, and rampant cheating. Things are better on the critic front though, where I expect reviewers were less focused on the online experience. On OpenCritic, it's sitting at a fair 73. The 6 Axes scored this a 6 out of 10, saying, quote, "The in-ring action is generally very good and the roster is well stacked. What is missing is good commentary, and there are gameplay issues that need to be addressed, including lag and stuttering. Undisputed is not quite ready to be the title challenger yet, but updates may see it get there eventually," end quote. I don't think Starship Troopers has much chance of replicating the Helldiver success if this 1.0 launch is anything to go by. It launched just last week and it really did not go well for them at all. On Steam, it's sitting at a mixed 47%. It's a big dive compared to recent ratings, and it can largely be attributed to the 1.0 release finally pulling back the curtain on the long-promised single-player campaign experience, which, to put it mildly, is very bad. I actually played this at Gamescom and I was kind of stunned by how half-baked it was. It just felt like bad in more ways than I have time to recount here. Still, the core of the game is that multiplayer co-op experience, but when Helldivers exist, this was always going to be a really tough sell, and the 1.0 release really fails to make a case for this as something you might want to check out. It is a real shame, I think. Ending on a high note, Never is that new, really beautiful game from Nomada Studio who earlier made Gris, and it's got some stellar reviews, sitting at a mighty OpenCritic score of 87. Game Rant scored this one a perfect 10, saying, quote, "From a sensory perspective, Never may be the most pleasing game I've ever played. I truly think that everyone should play Never at some point. It's hard to imagine someone not feeling profound emotion from this trim but unforgettable release," end quote. Never does have combat where Gris had none, but some of the reviews have actually commented on how light on some of the interactive elements were. A few outliers took this as a bit of a mark against the game, but for the most part, critics thought the whole package still came together really well. Press Start scored it a 9 out of 10, saying, quote, "Without spoiling it, there's one portion of the game that's about 3/4 the way through where creative director Rosette's breathtaking direction for environment design feeds into both combat and puzzle craft. It's one of the most incomparable 5-minute bursts that cemented Never in my mind as a fascinating work of art," end quote. Having played Gris, I have absolutely no difficulty whatsoever believing every word of these reviews. Alrighty, so what's coming out this week? Well, it's party time, literally. Super Mario Party Jamboree hits the Switch on Thursday on the 17th. Mario Party is definitely one of those kind of love it or hate it games. There's nothing like losing a match to a big dose of bad luck. So if you've been burned before, you probably won't be swayed by the idea that this is the biggest Mario Party game ever. Ed has actually been playing this one, and he reports that a lot of the new mini games are a big step up, and there's even a solo campaign, which is a light RPG type thing where you do quests to help set up the game boards, meaning you can literally have a party for one. Kind of sad when you really think about it. Speaking of sad, A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead is a horror game based on the films of the same name. This one's also out on Thursday for PC, PS5, and Xbox, and it's being published by Saber Interactive. Silent Hill 2 has more than filled my horror cup for the month, and if you're chasing even more chills this spooky season, this one might be for you. MechWarrior 5 Clans is coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox this Friday. This is a campaign-focused MechWarrior game from Piranha, who also worked on MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries and MechWarrior Online. This one's boasting the big move to Unreal Engine 5, as well as a more cinematic experience than usual, with 4-player co-op and dynamic destruction. It's been a long time since I've played a MechWarrior game, so I'd actually be quite curious to see how the reviews fare for this one when it drops. A new game from Bandai Namco's European studios is coming out on Friday. It's called Unknown 9 Awakening, and it's a cinematic action game with an emphasis on stealth and psychic powers. It's part of a larger transmedia push involving books, comics, and podcasts, but to be honest with you, the whole unknown part of the name really kind of rings true because no one seems to know that this exists right now. I actually did play a very small slice of it over at Gamescom in Germany, and it seemed fine, but it was a really small, just sort of like combat sandbox that I experienced, so I really couldn't glean too much from it. Ed played the first few hours of it and did a preview write-up for that over on our Patreon, which you can read for free, link below the like button. Basically, he says it's kind of like a PS3 game in that it's a bit rough around the edges, definitely AA by today's standards, but it's really swinging for the fences in some areas, particularly its gameplay mechanics and its story ideas. Might be worth checking out. This one's coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox. Jumping over to next week, we've got Streets of Rogue 2 launching next Tuesday on all platforms. This is the sequel to the bonkers top-down open-world sandbox game from solo developer Matt Dabrowski, which incidentally has an overwhelmingly positive rating on Steam. It promises all the intricate system mechanics and sense of absolute freedom from the first game, only taken to a whole new level with a more detailed pixel art style and a banging soundtrack. Definitely worth keeping an eye on this one. Back to horror games for a second with Fear the Spotlight, which is also coming out on October 22nd. This is the first release from Blumhouse Games, the horror film production company who decided to apply their creative thinking to game making and release a bunch of very different takes on the genre. Fear the Spotlight is a third-person PS1 style retro horror game where you play two girls who sneak into school after hours and try to survive a seance gone wrong. Pro tip, girls, you don't want to mess with Ouija boards, ever. And finally, here's a big one if you have a MetaQuest 3 headset, or are thinking of getting one. Batman Arkham Shadow is coming out on Tuesday, exclusive to that headset, or the newly released MetaQuest 3S. This one is being developed by Camouflage, who were acquired by Meta after a great track record in making VR titles. They did that Iron Man VR game, as well as the Metal Gear Solid-inspired Republic before that. I played this one at Gamescom, and I was very pleasantly surprised, to the point where I actually plan to play through this. Not right away, of course, since October is already way too stacked, but I do have a VR backlog too, and this one is going straight onto it. For real, I think this one is going to surprise a lot of people. One more game worth knowing about coming out this Tuesday, so put this on your radar. This is the Galaxies Unseen, and it's described as a heavy metal horror game. It's the first solo game from a guy called Nate Perkypile, who was previously a world artist at Bethesda, working on games like Skyrim and the Fallout series. Things got a little too big and impersonal over there during the Starfield era for him, so he went indie and decided to make his own game where you're a hunter stalking absolutely terrifying Norse monsters with an elemental bow and arrow. There's a free demo for this one out right now as part of Steam Next Fest, and man, if you like being the whole bow sicko in Skyrim where you just sneak around and shoot everything, then this is totally for you. The world looks fantastic and very foreboding, which is what you'd expect given Nate's experience, so definitely give that demo a shot if this at all piques your interest. I've left a link to it over on our Steam Curator page, which also has links to all of the other put this on your radar stuff we've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Sort of free stuff time now, and on Epic Games you can still get the space sandbox game Empyrean Galactic Survival, as well as the African action game Outliver Tribulation until the 18th of October. Once those are gone though, we've got two little indies on offer. The first is Cardboard Kings, which comes from an Australian duo. This one came out a couple of years ago, and it's about managing a trading card shop in a quiet little beach town. This means lots of loyal regulars, so you'll be managing your relationship with customers, good and bad, setting the buy-sell prices of individual cards, and also playing the trading card game, of course. Best of all, you get to keep the good cards for yourself, if you want. Joining Cardboard Kings is Invincible Presents Adam Eve. That's that visual hybrid novel and RPG starring the characters from the comic and animated series. It's got a simple but nice-looking comic book presentation, and it hasn't got a ton of reviews on Steam, but they all seem pretty positive, and it's also got a very respectable 80 on OpenCritic. A no-brainer if you like the series, I reckon, and you certainly can't argue with the price tag. Moving on to PlayStation Plus, which added a bunch of new games to the game catalog for extra and premium members. Highlights include Dead Island 2, which is some good dumb fun, 2 Point Campus if you want some more cerebral management, and the excellent Return to Monkey Island, which is definitely well worth playing. You've also got Gris, which comes ahead of Nomada's next game, Never, the one we mentioned earlier in the show, as well as the Dark Pictures anthology, The Devil in Me, if you still need something else scary for Halloween. Finally, Prime Gaming announced their lineup for October, and boy oh boy have they gone absolutely crazy once again. If you are a Prime member, right now you can get a code for Doom Eternal on the Microsoft Store, as well as BioShock Remastered and Tomb Raider Legend on GOG, as well as Ghostbusters, Spirits Unleashed, and No Straight Roads on the Epic Store. Later this month, they're giving away Killing Floor 2, The Gunk, Gargoyles Remastered, A Plague Tale Innocence, Death Door, and Scorn. Still have absolutely no idea why they're giving so much stuff away like this. It makes no sense to me, but whatever, just keep it coming, Jeff. For our feel-good story for the week, I'm pleased to announce that the Nintendo hardware reveal that we have all been waiting for is finally here. That's right. After years of waiting and pleading, Nintendo have finally pulled back the curtain on a clock, an alarm clock, in the year of our Lord 2024, where every person on the planet is using their phone as an alarm. To be fair though, this clock, which goes by the name Alarmo, does make a compelling case for why it should exist. Take a look at the introductory video.
The alarm is going off. But
Is there
Alarmo
something
doesn't
I'm
just play
looking for?
music to start your day. That's right. It responds to your body's movement with game sounds.
Yes, it's a clock that tracks your body position and makes sounds when you move. So, I do wonder if an enterprising model will get in there and repurpose this technology to track other in-bed activities, triggering the appropriate sound effects, of course.
Here we go!
1990.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you very much to Austin, especially for that edit there. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you all about what my reason was for getting suspended on Twitch, and also what my plans are going forward. I'm going to try and structure this video into 2 parts, where the first part is going to be me talking about the Twitch suspension, second part is going to be talking about myself. And the first thing I want to start off with is something that I know it might sound a little bit insincere because of how ridiculous this is, but I really mean it, and if you listen to the whole video, I hope you can see why. Everybody who's come and spoken out and talked to me and said stuff about me, you know, aside from the, oh, you should kill yourself or something like that, I want to say that I really appreciate you. And I think this has been something that's a long time coming, and I actually think that this is something that not only I deserved, but it's also something that I needed. And I want to talk about what the reason for that is, but I want to start off and just make sure that that's actually very clear. So a couple of days ago, I made some comments about Palestine and also about Hamas and, you know, some just general, you know, basically opinions that were trivializing the genocide that's happening there. And I don't really want to, like, mince words or, like, try to, like, oh, I wasn't justifying or, you know, promoting it. I said something about it that was disgusting. I said that I didn't care about innocent people getting killed by another force, by anything. And I think that that's a horrible, disgusting, mean-spirited thing to say. And I don't necessarily think that it was really racist, really. But when I'm using language like Palestinians or like the people there, rather than what my real language was, I've always been very outspoken and very against religious extremism. And I still am. I think that any religion and any way of thinking that's going to cause you to put other people in, like, kind of positions below you as, like, you know, like gay people, women, people with disabilities, anything like that, I think that that's a really bad position to have, and I really don't like that. And I think that my problem and my fault here was that I was making a criticism of religious extremism, and I made no effort. And I feel like almost, I've rewatched the clip, right, or a number of the clips, and it's like I've almost made an effort not to draw a distinction between the two things. I think that a lot of us here can easily say that we're against religious extremism, and I am, but whenever I categorize everybody in the area as this, like, group, then I'm the asshole, and I was the asshole. I had a lot of you guys tell me that. And it's taken me, this is what's so crazy about it, is that I think this has been going on now for like 2 years. I think that I've been slowly devolving into the most mean-spirited, I don't really even know what the word is for it. Just like the most mean-spirited, rude, like nasty, like just callous, psychopathic version of myself. I think that I've been devolving into this. And a lot of my friends have told me this. My dad has told me this. He said, you've got to chill out. You've got to calm down. I've been like, oh, that old man doesn't know what he's talking about. And I've finally had some level of accountability for that. And thank God. I look back at some of the things that I've said and done over the past 2 years, and I don't think that I've been wrong about everything, obviously, right? But there have been ways that I've communicated and ways that I've acted that are indefensible. And I think it's, looking back on it, it's just disgusting. And it's something that when you get lost in the sauce and you get fixated around, like, listening and reading feedback and, you know, just getting hyper fixated, this is like your entire life, you lose a perspective on reality. And you lose a perspective on the world. And I think that that perspective was brought into perspective yesterday and the day before, when I was making comments like this. And I feel so stupid. It's crazy. So I'm getting all these people making negative comments toward me. Everybody is telling me, like, oh, go kill yourself, I hate you, everything like this. Do you know who reached out to me? And they wanted to talk and have a conversation and see if I was okay. It's people that were Islamic and people that were had fucking family in Palestine. And how humiliating is that? How absolutely humiliating is that? And these were the people I was trying to say were bad. And I feel like such a fucking stupid asshole. I really do. I've always been a, I guess, like, I've always been kind of like an atheist. And even as a young kid, I was raised Roman Catholic, and I was always very defiant towards it. And I've always had a negative opinion of religion, and I've also had a negative opinion of religious cultures. And I think that really, I think that opinion is definitely shaped by the media that I've created, and the media I've created for myself, and then also just the media that exists, the media that I've chose to seek out as well. And I think that media has allowed me to have certain predispositions and certain biases that the truth is that don't have any sort of relation to what my own real life has been experienced, or my own real life experience has been, excuse me. And so I've been spending a lot of time talking to those people, and I've seen people, like fans of mine, like I had viewers messaging me on Discord, like, you know, why are you saying this? Like, do you want to talk? Do you want to, like, you know, I'm willing to talk to you, and, like, you know, like, let's try to work this out, right? We love you. And I scrolled up on their messages, and these are people that messaged me in, like, 2016, 2017, 2018, like, I love your content, I love your stream, I love you, right? And now they get to hear this from me, and I just feel like such a stupid, belligerent fucking asshole. I really do, and I'm sorry. I really am. I think that it's extremely fair to criticize religious extremism, and I think that it's extremely unfair to categorize everybody in part of that group as religious extremists.
Someone watching me.
I think it is.
I can tell.
I'm really sorry for that. I've just been a fucking dick. And it's weird because yesterday I woke up and I didn't know if I was going to get suspended or not. And I had planned on streaming and everything. And I actually got a text message from one of my mods. They said, "Oh, I heard about the suspension. I'm sorry." And I was like, I remember I was like driving, and like, you know, you'd think that like your heart rate would go up, but if anything, I felt more relaxed. I felt like finally I have a moment to just take a step back and breathe and think for myself and just stop, just like get out of my own head. And I spent a long time like just writing basically a list of all of these things that like I think that I should be doing with my life. And this is going to be kind of the second part, by the way, of the video. Comments that I made were pretty much about religious extremism. I think it's bad, but I've categorized a lot of people in that way that was unfair. It's wrong for me to have done that. I said something that was bad. I should not have said that. I should have chosen my words more carefully. I didn't do that. I doubled down on it. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. That's pretty much, I was a fucking asshole. I was a piece of shit. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. And so, actually I do know what else to say. I don't like making apologies because I think words don't matter. But I do think changed actions and changed behaviors do. And so you can take my apology as hopefully better content. And if you're not seeing that, I want you to hold me accountable. Hopefully this time I won't be stupid enough to ignore it. Mouth is pretty dry. Anyway, so the second part about this is that I want to talk a little bit about like my life, my personal life, etc., and kind of some of the points that I think that I've kind of gone through to get here. So the main thing is that for the past, like, I would say like 10 years or so, if you look at my life like this, I would have said 10 years ago or maybe 8 years ago, streaming was like this, right? YouTube was like this. And now I would say that my life and streaming are basically the exact same size. And what I mean by that is that streaming is my entire life. Doing this is my entire existence. And I think that the process of that has been extremely unhealthy for me. And I think that what it's done is that it's allowed me to become such a one-dimensional person that I'm not even a person anymore. It's like I'm in Dark Souls, I'm going hollow or something. And I think about like all of the, you know, like I made a list of all of the things that I'm not doing in my life that I should be doing, and I was writing it down, and I'm like, you know, fucking like, I'm just going and going and going. I'm like, oh my god, I think it'd be shorter if I transcribed the Bible. Like, this is insane. Like, like, whenever I have everything written down line for line, it's like, oh my god, I'm ruining my life. I've been existing, and I want to, at a certain point, actually try to live my life. And I don't think that I've been doing that. And so what am I going to do? How am I going to do that differently? And what does that mean for my stream, etc.? I think that I'm going to cut down a little bit on streaming quite as much. And I think I'm also going to cut down. This is going to sound like I hope I can say this in the right way. I feel like the main times that I laugh on my stream nowadays are when I'm laughing at other people. And I look back on videos that I did from 2020, 2016, and 17, and yeah, I've always been an asshole, but holy shit, I've been way more of an asshole. It's insane. And it's a night and day difference. And I've had, again, everybody in the world telling me this, including my own dad, and I've just ignored them. And finally, it's like, you know what? Maybe I'm an asshole. Maybe this is too far. Maybe I need a course correction, which is why I think that, like, getting suspended in this, I hope that it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And I don't know whether that's going to be true, but I'm going to try to do things differently and make sure to live up to that reality. And so, what are those things that I'm going to be doing differently? The first thing is that I think I'm going to try. I've been very much trying to, like, maintain a consistent schedule with my stream, and I will continue to do that. I want to get up and go to bed at relatively the same time. I want to live a normal life, and also I want to spend maybe a little bit less time streaming, and I want to spend more time creating my own videos and doing my own things and spending time on things that I really enjoy, and basically just, like, expanding my existence as a person. I think that ever since I started, like, OTK and I got involved with that, and then we had, like, other Starforge and, like, Mad Mushroom and Mythic and everything, like, honestly, it's been too much for me to handle. It's been completely too much for me to handle, and I've been losing my mind dealing with it, and I try to hide it the best I can, because, you know, I try to do the best, right? I try to do my best. You know, it doesn't matter how hard it gets, you just keep going, it doesn't matter. And eventually it does matter. And I think that I've negatively affected a lot of them. And I also don't want to talk about that just in the context of just, like, this recent controversy. I want to talk about this in the context of the last 2 years. I think that I haven't really been able to fulfill my responsibilities as a leader in a lot of cases to them. And I think that I've let a lot of people down. And there have been things that I've done that are positive as well, but I think that one thing this thing has taught me, this whole situation has taught me, it's made me realize, is that I need to get myself in check. I need to get my mind under control. I need to, like, just get my life I need to fix my fucking life. Like, it's insane. Like, I think about it and it's in shambles. Everything about my life is basically fucked. And I'm going to take a step back from all of that. I'm going to step away from my leadership position in OTK and Starforge and everything. I want to, and they're fine with that. They respect that, and I want to do this. And I want to do this not only for them, but mainly for myself, so I can be a better version of myself for everyone. And I want to apologize to all you guys, my viewers, that I don't think I've lived up to that. I think that I can be a lot better than what I am right now, and I don't even think that I've been putting in half the effort that I should be in the way that I should be, and I'm sorry. And so my plan is to, when I get unbanned, I'll keep streaming regularly, right? And I want to focus more on trying to do things that are fun, trying to laugh more with people rather than at people. I'll still laugh at people every once in a while, okay? Like, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But it's about a focus, and it's about a tone. I listen to my tone in the clip, and I just sound like such a piece of shit. Really, at the end of the day, I sound like a piece of shit. I sound like a terrible person. And it's just so mean-spirited and callous and just mean. And I don't want to be that person anymore. And I've spent a long time growing up. The time I did, I was an r/atheism enjoyer. I have a very negative opinion of a lot of religions. I've had the experience firsthand of the negative effects of Christianity and the way that I view that. And I've always read a lot of very bad things about Islam, and I've made a lot of criticisms of it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. I've heard a lot about it, and I've been like watching things about it, and I've been like hearing people telling me this is the way it is, but I've never seen it. And I actually think that after all this, I think towards the end of next year, I think I'd like to visit the Middle East and see it for myself. I want to see it for a historical perspective, right? I would love to go to Istanbul in Turkey. There's no ulterior motive there at all. But it's not just that. I'd love to visit places like Saudi Arabia, Dubai, any of the other places. I mean, the truth is that, and this is the worst thing about what I said, some of the places that I would want to visit, I might not be able to because of the way that they're like just the internal strife, the actual literal wars that are going on, people being literally killed there, and I might not be able to do that. But I want to do it, and I want to see it for myself.
What was that?
Because I don't like believing what people tell me. And I think that when I do, I end up being a fool. And I want to see it. I want to see it for myself, and I want to experience it. And I want to live my life. And I'm going to try to, like, I don't know, like, clean up part of my house. I'm going to try to do this, and I'm not going to hire a cleaner. As I said, I was raised Roman Catholic. I view this as a penance. And I think I need to do this for myself. I need to take accountability for bad things that I've done and for letting my life get this out of control. And I don't need a get out of jail free card. So I need to do that for myself and for my own closure as well. And I think also I want to live for the idiots out there that, you know, they're like looking to me to be a role model, right? Oh, not a good idea. But there are people that will see that, and they'll think maybe to themselves, maybe I should do the same thing. And if I can do that for one person, well, I've already done it for myself. I've already done a good thing, and so it could only get better. And so that's what my plan is. I'm going to try to, like, rethink my life. I have had a lot of people reach out to me. People I would have never expected reach out to me in ways that I never expected. And I understand that, you know, like, I'm still very critical about, you know, religious fundamentalism, right? But when you paint with such a broad brush that you just include an entire group of people, you're just being you're being a piece of shit. It's like people said it was racist. I didn't mean it as racist, but if you listen to what I said, it's easy that you could assume that. So easy. And so I'm just a fucking idiot. I'm a fucking moron. I've been an asshole. I think that I've devolved for the last 2 years. I think that I've negatively affected other people too, in ways that I hate. I don't even hate to say this. Like I think I need to say this. I need to say it more. I've negatively affected people in ways that I regret. I think whenever I go back live again, I'll probably talk about that more. And you know, like there's some just different people I kind of want to apologize to, and you know, take accountability for things that I've said and done that have negatively affected other people in ways that were unfair and wrong. And that's what my plan is. That's about it. I want to say that I hope that now, after you've heard what I have to say, that a lot of you all can see kind of why I'm saying that I appreciate this. I really think that this is something I needed, and I hope that this is the next part of the rest of my life. And I want you guys to hold me accountable to that. So if I'm being a fucking asshole again, if I'm being mean, if I'm just being callous, acting like a psychopath, just treating people awfully outside of a WoW raid when they get killed by fire, but really laughing at people's misfortune, try to say, man, just chill the fuck out, stop it. Just stop. And I'm gonna do my best to listen. I spent 2 years ignoring it, and look where it got me. This is not even the tip of the iceberg of the problems in my life. And I want to thank everybody for making me aware that that's the case. And hopefully I can avoid the iceberg, right? And so I want to say that's pretty much about all I've got. I'm sorry for a lot of people I let down, not just with comments like this, but also just with the way I've been doing things in general. I think that you guys deserve a much better version of me than what you've been getting. And I hope that I can live up to that in the future. And I don't even want to think about it in the future, right? As soon as I get unbanned, the best apology is better content, change behavior. And that's what I hope to do. So yeah, anyway guys, I'm just going to focus on myself for a while, try to improve my own life, and there's a lot of things I think, again, I'll probably talk about more whenever I go live again, that are like more kind of, you know, just like kind of in the weeds, like personal stuff. But overall, that's the big picture. That's where I'm at. And so, anyway, that's about all I've got, and I'll see you guys soon. I'm going to try to just take this time off to, you know, really kind of fix my shit. So, yeah, anyway, guys, that's about it. I'll see you later. Bye.
Okay, that's probably about it for today's stream, morning stream as well. I wasn't going to do a morning stream, but Woo Woo woke me up. Yeah, and now she's sleeping because I'm awake. Alright, well, I'll see you guys later. Probably be a evening stream later today. Bye. Mwah.